Cycling infrastructure refers to all infrastructure which may be used by cyclists. This includes the same network of roads and streets used by motorists, except those roads from which cyclists have been banned, plus additional bikeways that are not available to motor vehicles, such as bike paths, bike lanes, cycle tracks and, where permitted, sidewalks, plus amenities like bike racks for parking and specialized traffic signs and signals. The manner in which the public road network is designed, built and managed can have a significant effect on the utility and safety of cycling. The cycling network may be able to provide the users with direct, convenient routes, minimizing unnecessary delay and effort in reaching their destinations. Settlements with a dense road network of interconnected streets tend to be viable utility cycling environments. History. Bikeways. A bikeway is a lane, route, way or path which in some manner is specifically designed or designated for bicycle travel. Bike lanes demarcated by a painted marking are quite common in many cities. They are also increasingly common in other major cities such as New York City, Melbourne, Ottawa, Vancouver and San Francisco, Montreal and Davis, California, which have had segregated cycling facilities with barriers for several decades, are among the earliest examples in North American cities. Terminology. Some bikeways are separated from motor traffic by physical constraints, bicycle trail, cycle track, but others are partially separated only by painted markings, bike lane, buffered bike lane, and contraflow bike lane. Some are shared the roadway with motor vehicles, bicycle boulevard, sharrow, advisory bike lane, or shared with pedestrians, greenway, shared use path. Segregation. The term bikeway is largely used in North America to describe all routes that have been designed or updated to encourage more cycling or make cycling safer. In some jurisdictions such as the United Kingdom, segregated cycling facility is sometimes preferred to describe cycling infrastructure which has varying degrees of separation from motorized traffic, or which has excluded pedestrian traffic in the case of exclusive bike paths. There is no single usage of segregation. In some cases it can mean the exclusion of motor vehicles and in other cases the exclusion of pedestrians as well. Thus, it includes bike lanes with solid painted lines but not lanes with dotted lines and advisory bike lanes where motor vehicles are allowed to encroach on the lane. It includes cycle tracks is physically distinct from the roadway and sidewalk, and it includes bike paths in their own right-of-way exclusive to cycling. Paths which are shared with pedestrians and other non-motorized traffic are not considered segregated and are typically called shared-use path, multi-use path in North America and shared-use footway in the UK. Guides. Various guides exist to define the different types of bikeway infrastructure, including UK Department for Transport Manual, The Geometric Design of Pedestrian, Cycle and Equestrian Routes, Sustrans Design Manual, UK Department of Transport Local Transport Note 2/08. Cycle Infrastructure Design, the Danish Road Authority Guide, Registration and Classification of Paths, the Dutch CRO, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials Guide to Bikeway Facilities, the Federal Highway Administration Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and the U.S. National Association of City Transportation Officials Urban Bikeway Design Guide. Safety. There have been a lot of studies on the safety of all types of bikeways. Opponents point out the increased risk from various types of infrastructure including shared-use paths. Legislation. Different countries have different ways to legally define and enforce bikeways. Bikeway controversies. Controversies have surrounded bikeways, particularly in North America and the United Kingdom. Some detractors argue that one must be careful in interpreting the operation of dedicated or segregated bikeways, cycle facilities across different designs and contexts. What works for the Netherlands won't necessarily work elsewhere. Proponents argue that dedicated bike lanes have been implemented in many cities and are both popular and safe. Bikeway selection. Jurisdictions have guidelines around the selection of the right bikeway treatments in order to make routes more comfortable and safer for cycling. Bikeway types. Bikeways can fall into these main categories: separated in roadway bikeways such as bike lanes and buffered bike lanes, physically separated in roadway bikeways such as cycle tracks, right-of-way paths such as bike paths and shared-use paths, and shared in roadway bikeways such as bike boulevards, shared lane markings, and advisory bike lanes. The exact categorization changes depending on the jurisdiction and organization. While many just list the types by their commonly used names: separated in roadway bikeway, bike lanes, or cycle lanes, are on-road lanes marked with paint dedicated to cycling and typically excluding all motorized traffic. Buffered bike lanes. A buffered bike lane is typically a lane with a wide painted buffer to demarcate a larger gap between the cycle lane and other traffic. Contraflow bike lanes. Contraflow bike lanes are typically a painted lane added to some one-way streets as a way to allow cycling traffic to safely travel in the opposite direction of all other traffic, including motorized vehicles and bicycles. Physically separated in roadway bikeway, cycle tracks, separated bike lanes, protected bike lanes. A physically marked and separated lane dedicated for cycling that is on or directly adjacent to the roadway but typically excludes all motorized traffic with some sort of vertical barrier. Bike paths. Bike paths are paths with their own right-of-way dedicated to cycling, though in many cases shared with pedestrians and other non-motorized traffic. Greenways. A greenway is a long, narrow piece of land, often used for recreation and pedestrian and bicycle user traffic, and sometimes for streetcar, light rail or retail uses. Shared use path. A shared use path supports multiple modes, such as walking, bicycling, inline skating and people in wheelchairs. Shared in roadway bikeways. Bicycle boulevards. A bicycle boulevard is a low-speed street which has been optimized for bicycle traffic. Bicycle boulevards discourage cut-through motor vehicle traffic but allow local motor vehicle traffic. They are designed to give priority to cyclists as through-going traffic. Shared lane markings. Advisory bike lane. An advisory bike lane is a bike lane which motorists may legally encroach. Advisory bike lanes are often installed on low-volume streets and in combination with the centerline removal. These markings give bicyclists a space to ride, but are also available to motorists if space is needed to pass oncoming traffic. Roadways with legal access for cycling. Bicyclists are legally allowed to travel on many roadways in accordance with the rules of the road for drivers of vehicles. Road shoulder. A road shoulder is a reserved lane on the verge of a roadway that is often used by bicyclists and also serves as an emergency stopping lane for motor vehicles. Bicycle superhighways. Denmark has pioneered the concept of bicycle superhighways to increase the speed, safety, and comfort of bicycle commuting. Since then, London and Flanders have also started building bicycle superhighways. The physical design of the routes changes depending on the circumstances and can include shared in-road bikeways, bike lanes and cycle tracks, making it difficult to categorize into degree of separation from other traffic. The first Danish Route C99 opened in 2012 between the Vesterbro rail station in Copenhagen and Albertslund, a western suburb. The route cost 13.4 million Danish kroner and is 17.5 kilometers long, built with few stops and new paths away from traffic. Service stations, with their pumps, are located at regular intervals, and where the route must cross streets. Handholds and running boards are provided so cyclists can wait without having to put their feet on the ground. The cost of building a bicycle superhighway depends on many things, but is usually between €300,000 per kilometer and €800,000 per kilometer.